r/AskReddit. Serious, when was a moment where you were 99% sure you were going to die? It's tame by comparison to the rest, I think, but I flew down to visit my sister once, and a few hours before she took me back to the airport, I was putting something in the trunk of her car and the trunk door slammed down on my head. I got the expected headache and thought, okay, whatever. My head was still hurting when I boarded, but I was manageable until the plane pressurized after takeoff. Oh my god. It literally felt like someone was squeezing my skull in two pieces. I felt like my eyes were going to pop out and my head would actually explode from sheer pain. I wanted to get the flight attendant's attention, but I think if I would have moved even slightly, I would have passed out. So it was 2 hours of pure agony. But then, as we descended lower and lower, it slowly eased off until I could function again. I'd just given birth to my daughter, first full-term pregnancy. The midwife tugs something trying to get afterbirth out, fails and hits the emergency buzzer. Loads of people rush in. One woman literally flings her hand up inside me and puts pressure on something. One of the surgeons asked her to move and she said as soon as I move my hand she is going to bleed out. Got a mask put on my face and I remember saying, please don't let me die, I've just had a daughter. Woke up with an oxygen mask on after receiving a blood transfusion. Lost so much blood, was lucky to be alive. Blessed. My local hospital is amazing and I am so thankful for them every single day, and this is why you should always have babies in the hospital. I'm glad you are okay in the end. Although I don't remember this, I've been told the story many times, and I'm told I could have died. My mom, for some reason, let me and my older sister play on a balcony that had no railing as it was being renovated. The ground was about 7 feet below. I can't remember how old they said I was, but I was barely walking and needed furniture to pull myself up on my feet. They heard me screaming and found me on the ground below. I had landed on a pile of gravel and rolled down into a deep puddle. I had managed to get on my feet and scream. My mom claimed that angels helped me stand to save me from drowning, but not once did I ever hear her talk about how stupid it was to put us out there. Repost, but I was dragged down a highway in a botched hit and run. I had grabbed onto his car in the heat of the moment, regretted it, and he pulled off the highway onto the service road. I had been saying slow down and I'll let go, to which he eventually replied with okay and sped up. He was aiming to hit me off with a street lamp, and when I noticed I started pulling myself through the window of his car. Luckily, the only thing that hit it was my leg. Through the pain, I grabbed his gear shift and yanked it into park, which finally slowed his vehicle down to a stop, allowing me to jump off and get his license plate. He's currently facing assault charges. I was on a roller coaster ride in Six Flags about 7 years ago. We get in and I lock in my straps. Now this ride pulls you backwards and upwards as a sort of reverse slide. When we are at the top of this incline I feel one of the straps snap off and I can feel my body start to slide off my seat. I extend my hands to hold myself up using the seat in front of me and then the ride starts. I hold on for dear life to the one strap that's still on the seat. The roller coaster does some corkscrew type of moves and during the last spin I feel my butt begin to pull off the seat and I just close my eyes and hope for the best. Luckily it all worked out as I'm here typing this out. I was at my mom's trailer park one summer having a swim while my mom was on the beach with my nephew. We were the only ones there, as it was early morning on a weekday. Park is only open to the general public on weekends, so it's quiet during the week. There is a floating dock, a bit of a swim out into the lake. I decided F it, I'll swim out there. I start swimming and my mom gets up with my nephew because she had to go to the bathroom, leaving me alone in a deep lake, swimming to a floating dock. It looked a lot closer from the shore. By the time I was halfway out, my arms were shaking and it was getting harder and harder to keep my head above water. I remember thinking that was it. I was about to die all because my mom had to visit the bathroom and I had the bright idea to swim to the dock. In the end, I made it as I was starting to go under and managed to yank myself up the ladder. I laid there for probably 30 minutes recovering, trying to stop the panic attack that hit me as soon as I was back out of the water. Then I had to swim back. Thankfully, while it was still a close call going back to shore, my mom had returned by then, so I wasn't as scared. I never swam out that far again without some sort of flotation device. I learned my lesson. I'm a decent swimmer, but I didn't realize how exhausting it gets and how quickly when you can't put your feet down to rest. I can only recall one situation where I genuinely thought I was going to die. When I was around the age of 12, I contracted a very rare virus that, although it doesn't cause harm to most people and should be pretty easily combated by one's normal immune system, my own immune system severely struggled to defend itself from it. The virus gave the most painful stomach aches. I was unable to sleep for days straight, would vomit every hour, and I had completely no appetite, which meant I was even more fatigued generally from lack of sufficient nutrients, etc. Note: if I ate anything that was solid, whether it was from spaghetti to blueberries, the pain would have gotten twice as worse. I could only consume things like soup and drink water and tea, but even then I couldn't have too much as I would just vomit more often. After a few days, my parents were extremely concerned, sent me to the hospital, and I got treated in the emergency department due to me being completely unable to act properly. To make matters worse, I got diagnosed for a completely different virus. Thanks a lot, Dr. Amen. I was given a powder which I was supposed to mix with water and consume around 2-3 times a day. This only prompted to worsen my symptoms, and I cannot exclaim how immense the pain was. I was seriously concerned about dying with my increasingly more severe vomiting and fatigue, and I remember telling myself that as I was on the way to the hospital for the second time, 2 days after the first visit. Luckily, the new doctor immediately recognized the misdiagnosis as my parents informed her of the medicine I was taking and my symptoms, got prescribed new medicine, and, although the recovery was fairly slow, by 2 weeks' time I was feeling better than ever. I was honestly just relieved that I didn't die in those 2 weeks, not going to lie. Funnily enough, the following year I would contract the same virus. The second doctor instructed my parents to keep the prescribed medicine in the off chance that I would contract this virus again, and thoroughly explained that if the virus was to infiltrate my system again, even though the chances are extremely slim, the second time around it would be a completely less bumpy ride. Thanks to her, the recovery was much easier this time, as my parents immediately recognized the similar symptoms and kept the medicine that was prescribed from the year prior as the doctor instructed them to do. This probably isn't as crazy as other replies to this post, but it was genuinely a frightening scenario for me at my age. Genuinely believed I contracted a fatal disease. I delivered a pizza to a house just outside of the city. On the way back, I stopped to help a car that pulled over in front of me with their hazard lights on. I pulled up beside them and thought it was weird that nobody rolled down a window or made any kind of contact with me for around 15 seconds. The passenger then jumped out of his side of the car yelling that they needed help as he made his way toward my car. I thought something was weird about this. As I started to pull away before he could get to my passenger door, he began shooting at me. I ducked my head after the first shot entered through the back window and embedded in my passenger seat headrest. Another shot entered through the rear window, while the other 3 only hit the outside metal parts of my car. He missed altogether with another shot. I remember being sure I was about to die as he fired more shots at me. I was very surprised that it wasn't panicky. It was just like, oh, I guess this is it. Turns out it was a plot to rob me. The pizza was ordered and the guys were stationed down the road to intercept me. They knew who I was and they knew that I would be able to recognize them, as I had delivered a few orders to them before. The guy wasn't wearing anything to cover his identity, which led me to believe that he would have shot and killed me if he would have made it inside my car. By the next morning they had all been arrested. The shooter was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. He later appealed that sentencing because there was a word wrong in the jury instructions. He won the appeal and ended up being sentenced to 10 years, and was released November of 2010 after 5 years. The remaining 5 years were to be served as parole probation. He was arrested twice for parole probation violation when he was only a couple months away from total freedom. I laughed. TLDR, some people tried to murder me for pizza money. They shot. They missed. They got caught. They did time, but not enough, then did more.